Hi, I'm Mr. Morrow, and I hope this project file doesn't destroy my computer, but here is the Monorail project file. It's kind of big. I'm going to try to go over it, and I think I'm going to start by just going over the song as a whole, and then breaking down sections in the order that I made them. So, the song as a whole, I knew that I wanted to kind of have three sections, which is everything before that one section in 19.8, the one section in 19.8 to the piano, and the piano onward. Right, so, one second. To explain kind of what's going on with this arrangement, I'm going to have to go over how the song came together, like the order I made the sections. But it kind of follows a crescendo, and then it's kind of calmer here, and then it builds into this section, which is huge, and then it builds into this build-up, which is kind of ironic, but okay. Then after this build-up, it just becomes super quiet for a bit for some reason, and that just kind of worked. And then it becomes the loudest it's been yet, and proceeds to go to an even quieter build-up section that, because I had such a good build-up, I just did a full 180 and decided, nope, we're going to the calmest part of the song, which then builds into the loudest parts of the song at the end. So, let's go over the order that I actually made all the parts in. So this is the project file that this originally started in, and I was going to originally have it sound like this, which is a shamelessly stolen motif from Mumbat and Madness from in Across the Spider-Verse. Right, you get the idea. And I kind of ditched that to just become this. Right, which is what you hear after this section in the original. Now, let's go over these drum sounds first, because I just use them everywhere in this song. It's just the Gretsch kit, FL Studio's like stock Gretsch kit, right? This is without the snare, by the way. It looks like this. Right, and then there's also this snare. And then for the fills at the end of the phrase, I throw an OTT on the entire thing, and it's doing this. Right. What is... Oh, I know the issue. This doesn't have this. Right, so that's what's going on there. And then I have Keep Forest Ferrum. It's not super important that you see the MIDI for it, but here it is anyway. And these are just to kind of accompany that a little bit. Okay, now let's actually go over the first section that I made that's in the original song, and from there I'll go over everything that I didn't go over there. And it is actually the 19.8 section right here, which this is 19.8. That's why it sounds so weird. And it is, if I throw a metronome on it, oh, hold on, that's a terrible example. I'll do it here. Where's the tempo automation? Tempo. Right, and so it's this vital pluck, which sounds like this guy as well. Right, so that's the first sound. Also, I just realized I didn't really go over this rhythm. It's a bunch of dotted eighths. Dun 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 dun. Right, and then we have these 16th notes to reset it and make it sound weird. And then here I just do dun dun. And the way I came up with that rhythm is because I just kind of heard it in my head. Anyway, the way this vital works is it's a saw wave with sync and inharmonic stretch that slowly gets higher and higher, as well as, I don't think this unison's doing much. Okay, it just kind of makes it sound more super saw-y. This is so that you don't get a ton of really annoying high end. Right, and I just didn't like that as much. And then it gets distorted. There's reverb, compression, and a transient shaper on it, in that order. Right, the compression just makes it, well, compressed. And then reverb. And then this. Just to make the attack more pronounced. Then there's also this guy. Which I think... Oh, I see. Okay. It's just a sine wave with some unison that just goes down over and over, with sync that's mapped to a macro. Oh, and no, what? Yeah, sync and pitch map to macro, and I'll show you where that macro gets modulated in a second. It's over here. Maybe it's not over here. Vital 6? Yeah, okay, here it is. I'm not really sure where it's getting all of that, like, weird tonality from. It's the sync, okay. Right, and if we layer these together... Okay, then I layered these drums with it just to make sure it's like... 1 second. Right, so then you really got the rhythm there. I can also throw the impact back in. Right, you get the idea now. Okay, next I'm actually going to go over this bass art. This guy here. It is a simple supersaw art. I hate this tempo automation. Just for clarification, because this is in 9/8, I have to half-time it with the tempo automation for it to sound correct. That's what's going on there. Okay, if we get rid of everything except for the first saw wave, it'll sound very similar. Right, so it's a supersaw art, but I just add these in for some extra, like, tonality and stuff to it, and then this noise is just a tiny bit of high end I'm throwing back in. This macro is slowly modulating the filter more and making the LFO matter less. Chorus filter cutoff is this guy, so this is slowly getting higher. Filter 1 cutoff, this is slowly getting higher. Modulation 1 and 2 amounts, and these are slowly getting lower. Okay. So that's all those. Now let's go over these two things here. Let's start with this guy. It is a really awesome... Actually, let me make sure that this vital doesn't have too much post-processing. It's just distortion and EQ. Okay. That's simple. Okay. So this guy, take off all the effects, and it's just... And I have, as you can tell, 6 different 808s here. 5 808s here. because citrus number 3 must be further down. Yeah, here it is. So I have 5 808s. And they're just sine waves with envelopes. So this one goes like doo doo, right, like this, and with a ton of post processing, mainly like just sine compression stuff. So if I take all of it off except for this distortion, we get, and then, which this is just taking out the lowest harmonic and kind of increasing the punch factor of it. This is just saturation, compression. And then this is more saturation. This is... What? This is taking out all of the, like, low mids so it doesn't get muddy, but it keeps the punch in, and it keeps the lowest harmonic in. Right, but because I took so much out, I add it back in. And then here... This is wild. We're lowering the super lows, taking the click part of it up, and then lowering the volume of the noisy part. Then we compress it a ton. I mean, distort it a ton. Then we saturate it again. And then we EQ it one last time. This one's keeping the lowest bit up the most, and then it kind of dips in the low mids and mids, and then it keeps the noise in. And then I layer that with brass stab. 1 second. Now this brass stab is Pandora bursts, and I use it all around this track, a ton. And I'll get into the way I use it in a second, but it's just Pandora bursts with a tiny bit of EQ, so that it doesn't fill up the sub, which is where the 808 goes. Another EQ, I don't know why this is a separate EQ, but it is, and then saturation. Right, without... You can see a slight difference there. And then you layer these together and it becomes... Right, let's throw this back in. Okay, now let's put these back in. Including this. Right, but that's kind of empty. That's kind of empty. So I also added this guy. And the thing about this guy is I needed him to sound like have like the perfect pitch envelope to him. So here's what he sounds like. Right, and I kind of needed, well, this is Monorail chase, right? We needed Monorail heist. We needed a siren noise, right? So what he is, get ready for this, guys. Oh, 1 second, let me grab the audio clip. And I recorded a ton more of those, but those were the best two. And I threw them into Harmor. Which it's this guy. And I turned Squarify on, and I just messed with it a ton. I changed the timing of it. I added Harmonizer, adding a ton of like inharmonic stuff. Just like weird things for it to have. Then I post-processed it a ton. So if I get rid of the post-processing, it's this. Right, so that sounds a lot more like the original audio clip that you found. Now let's go through the copious amount of distortion on this. Little bit of saturation, frequency shift it, -71. Right, just to give it more inharmonicness. Cut out the lows, just so that it's still clean, but it doesn't have the unwanted stuff. And then I put a type of distortion on it that makes it super fuzzy. Cool. So that's where it starts to sound like what it sounds like in the final product. Hyperdimension and chorus, just to add a bit of, like, less pure cleanliness to it. Just EQ, my bad. This actually is the one that gets faded in over time here. So I'm going to take that off for now. Then I have a reverb that also gets faded in over time. You can see it getting mixed in less and less as it goes on. Yeah, there you go. Then I have some extra EQ to cut out a bunch of the lows that I don't want, so that doesn't interfere with everything else. Compression, I don't know what's up with this compression, but it is compression, and reverb. So now it sounds like... Okay, cool. Now we add these back in and it fades in. This guy I added in last, but he sounds like this, and I'll go over him later. Okay, so now let's go over the different stuff that's happening in the second half, which includes this arc and the brass at the end. So this arp, my bad. God. This boom, 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 boom. I think it's actually this automation clip. Right, it's another ARP of basically the exact same thing. Here. It's the exact same thing, but with an envelope that matches the rhythm that it's playing now. Right. And I layer it with this. Okay, 1 second. Which, this is a different Pandora Stabs than before, but it is the same sound font with different processing. Right, you can hear it's the same. But this one is higher. It occupies a lot of the higher end. So I have a tiny bit of lows boosted, and then this was originally a latency EQ so that these didn't phase cancel with each other, but instead I also just added this little bit of high end to it, and then a lot more high end to it, and then distortion. Right, so that sounds awful on its own, but with everything else... And this guy is the first brass tab, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so now I've gone over the first section that I made. Let's just really quickly go over the second. This is a lot of the same stuff that I kind of already went over, but we also, at the last day of working on this, I decided to add this guy. He's not doing much. It's another super saw pluck thingy. It's comprised of this guy, which if I take off all the post-processing, sounds like this. He's nothing special. It's a super saw pluck with added tonality from this low sine wave. And then I compress it, and I distort it, and I have a filter, and that's what's making it go right. And that's pretty much all you need to know. It's a really simple sound. This other guy is more complex. He's just distorted, but he's pretty much the exact same thing. Okay, no, he is the exact same thing, just with a different envelope to him. Cool. That's it. That's the only thing that's different, pretty much. Except for this background stuff, which I guess I will get into now. Let's go over the cymatic sample first. This is a cymatic siren, I believe. This guy. There's also this guy down here. Right, and it's just the same thing with up an octave. So, without any post-processing. Right, it's that sound. I throw a gate on him, which is what makes him go reverb to add some space, an EQ so that it doesn't interfere with anything, and then a frequency shifter. And that's actually what's building here. That's what you hear here as well. Right, and I needed something to show you where the pulse was because I have a tempo change here from, I believe it's 82 to 170. 81 to 170. So 162 to 170. It's slightly different. There's also this guy, which I think is another cymatic sample. Riser. Let's hear this guy on his own. What are you? Do I just have a riser? Oh, I do. Okay, I made this guy. I think it's a frequency shifted saw wave that goes up in pitch. And I just use him in a bunch of places. I think his post-processing chain, yeah, is distortion, frequency shifting again, high pass, and reverb. Okay. On to this section. The last thing to go over is this guy. Oh, so the pitch is determined by this coarse pitch guy here. This determines the level of this extra thing to it. And then this LFO just kind of... You'll hear a slight difference once we start FMing from B. Originally the difference was more, but it's just kind of just a siren noise. There's nothing... This is overcomplicated. The delay adds some extra space and tonality to it. It also, the delay time is getting modulated by LFO1 because what this does is when it's this short, it starts having a comb filter effect due to phase cancellation. I can model that, but AU5 has the static chorus video, which pretty much explains it. Then I have compression, reverb, EQ, distortion, and a low pass. And the distortion is on 0 square, which is just like crank it fully. Right. There's nothing too crazy going on with that guy. I guess this is the part that I made next, so I'll go over this guy, these as well. No post-process, it's... Right, so it's just essentially a saw wave layer, just to... Like, if we take off all the effects, it'll become more obvious. That's everything between... Okay, I think I know what effects I had on this, so it's... Right, so it fades in with this guy. I believe this is the pitch envelope. Yeah. So this changes it so that goes no, and then this is the volume, so it fades in and out. And then this is what makes it go dun 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 dun. Okay. So then we compress it, right? Delay. Just to add some extra, like, interesting tonality to it. Distortion. The downsample is actually the most important part of this. For some reason, if you throw, like, a weird tonality and downsample together, you start getting really weird stuff. Right, so that already sounds great. By the way, that phasing comes from the little bit of unison on those. Then we have a flanger and a phaser. Right, they just kind of add some extra, like, interestingness to it. Now, if we take off all this, this is saturation, EQ, I believe this is cutting out the lows. Yep. Compression. And then this is gated reverb. So the way that this works is I have a reverb that's getting sidechained to the dry signal. So when the dry signal is playing, you can't hear the reverb. And then when it stops playing, it gets loud, which is just a really cool effect. Right. And then I have some extra reverb. Okay. Now there's this guy. It's a saw. It's the same as before. It's just playing like a different thing, so it sounds different. Cool. This guy is just... Hold on, let me actually start from here. So that when I get into this fill, it doesn't take up any space. And then I use this riser again, of course. When I have the correct, I think it's this guy, when I have the correct tempo change, you can see it kind of lines up. I also fade in a brass hit here. And I will go over that more once I start going over the orchestral sections. Now let's go in chronological order. So we have this guy. It's just tremolo violas from the BBC Symphonic Orchestra, the free one. They did the job, so I didn't really care how incredible they were. So this is outlining the third and the fifth of a C minor. Then we have just kind of, if we look at this as the melody harmonized, it's this, right? So it's just da na 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 na, or da na. That's the melody, and then I just harmonize it with thirds, and then occasionally I jump out of that. Like here we get to fourths. Well, fifth and then fourth. Just because if I continued to do thirds, it would sound really weird. Then it's just kind of a harmony line that sounded good. And then I end on the fifth so that I can lead back to the one. Now here I finally outline the one chord, and then I draw in the voice leading for the chords. So this is B flat major, just B flat major. This is technically not a full chord, so we can't tell what it is yet, but I think it's meant to basically just be like this. So D diminished. And then we have C. This, once again, is not a full chord. It's either a C minor or an E flat major. And then G dominant 7, and so on and so forth. It's not important to go over all of this, but that's what's going on here. In the second half, I throw in these three things just to raise tension. This is just noise that fades in and gets higher in pitch. That's all it is. There's nothing special going on. There's an EQ to cut out the lows again. There's a Maximus to just perfect the volume curve, and then there's some reverb. Nothing crazy. We know what this guy is. We know what this guy is. Actually, do we know what this guy is? I think we know what this guy is. Yes. What? I took the exact same siren from before and I threw it into a granulizer so it sounded different. So that wouldn't be super obvious. I'm just using the same sample over and over. That's a really cheap trick. Anyway, now we have these guys that fade in. Right? I'll throw this in as well, just for show. Oh, I should also mention on the violas there's this. Nothing crazy. Okay. Oh, and then they get thrown into this, which is crazy. We have... Once again, I'll just go over that when I go over the orchestral sections. Okay. Here. So we have 1, 6, 4, 5. That's the chord progression. And then here it's 1, 7, 4, 5. Here, the 808 actually follows that chord progression instead of just kind of being a melodic line that follows it, but not just plays the roots, right? And this citrus, the difference between this and the other one is just that it is built to, let's see, I think this is actually the same one as the other one that I've already gone over, so never mind. But yeah, that's the brass line under this. Right, we the da-na. And then I added these strings that you can't hear very well in the second half of it. Playing, right, C minor, D diminished, or no, that's the top half of B flat major, C minor again. This is an F7, but I don't play the F or the A flat in these. And then this is a G dominant 7. And it sounds awful, so I kept them really quiet. Also, for the second half of this, I layer the brass with more brass. Where are you? There you are. Right. So it goes from... The interesting thing is this is a different rhythm than what plays here, but right, it fades in. This guy just fades in so that when this comes in, it's not overpowering. But the interesting thing is this rhythm is not the same as this rhythm. Right, if I solo this, dun 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 dun, they're different rhythms, and that's intentional. I wanted this first part. I originally wanted each of the 3 sections to have their own rhythm, but I couldn't come up with a third one that fit this. So the first section has the dun 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 rhythm. The second part after the, like, this whole part has the dun 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 rhythm. And here I layer an extra snare. This is just the one that FL Studio loaded up, and I was like, hey, actually that sounds kind of nice. But it's really low, so you can't hear it super well. Especially when it's... Okay. We have this low piano for impact. This guy. So let's go over these two. Let's actually start with the... This is another super saw thing, but this time it's a band pass instead of a low pass, which is why it sounds like wow instead of what you normally hear. And then it has this random amp top end just to make it like have a little more character. Right. And there's just saturation, just so you know. If I take this guy away, though, it becomes... Which is still really cool on its own. Also, if we get rid of this... Because there's a low pass here. And yeah, there's distortion and compression. Nothing crazy on this one. This one has crazy EQ and distortion. So let's hear how it sounds without any of that. Pretty similar. This one also has a bandpass kind of situation going on. A little bit of noise that's going into that bandpass, and then of course it's just a super saw Reese with some compression. And then if we throw back on the EQ but not the distortion, it becomes... And then the distortion is some extra saturation. So nothing super crazy going on there. I have the brass stab here as well. But I have the full brass stab now, which sounds really good. And then this is Citrus 2. The difference between Citrus 1 and Citrus 2 is that the volume automation is less, like, less, what's the word? Extreme. And that's about it. That's about the only difference. And then there's this guy as well. So this is a, right, it's going and that's what this is. This LFO is modulating the detune of all the unison voices, which is what makes it sound really noisy when I FM something that isn't doing that into it. And then this is going up in pitch, which it's just kind of playing around and seeing what sounds right. But like... Right, that's what that sounds like. We got this guy as well, in case you couldn't tell from looking at the pattern. Nothing crazy. Here, I throw in this bass art from before. This guy, which we've already heard. This guy, which we've already heard. And these guys. And to understand why that is the way it is, let's throw all of this back in as well. right? This goes down as this builds up. And that just kind of sounded right. That's another thing that just sounded right. What the heck are you? What are you doing? Oh, okay, you're this. Okay. Also, I changed the rhythm here. Nothing super crazy and chaotic going on there. Here's the first of 4 instances of Morse code. I added this just because I needed an extra thing to like build tension and everything. And it is this one. The story behind this one is that I was on stream. And I was like, I'm waiting until someone asks me what the Morse code later in the song says, because there's an instance over here. There's an instance over here, and there's an instance over here. And so I was like, I'm waiting for someone to ask me what the Morse code says. And someone said, does it say my balls hurt? This one does. So I added this one after they said that. Are you happy? Is this what you wanted? It actually fits like perfectly. You can barely hear it, which is the point. Right, and I kind of want you to be able to hear it, but, you know. Anyway, so then let's go over the first melodic section, which is actually not what I did not make this in this order. I made it after, I think I made all of this, and then I added these melodic sections. But I'm going to go over this one anyway for making it easy to understand. So there's this vital synth that just, it's the same as before, but it goes, right? It's the exact same one as before. And it's this pattern. And this lays out the chord progression for this section, which is we build off the 1 onto the 6, 2, 5, 1. 6, 5, 7, 1. That's it. That's the whole chord progression. In case you're wondering, circle of fifths, and then just kind of spicing it up a little. There's a volume automation here so that the fills don't become overwhelming. Just like here, it's slightly quieter. It's barely noticeable. It's more noticeable over here. But yeah, the snare is the same volume, by the way. Anyway, now we got this guy. So let's actually go over the orchestra now. Oh my god, this is such a big pattern. So we got this guy, the L string staccato from before, which I think is this guy. Insane, right? Crazy how that works. They're not doing much. We have the brass stabs. They're playing the bass line at like full volume and slowly crescendoing as it goes on. This string thing is actually from the same sound font like pack, but this is just a different one that's the basis. Just because I wanted this to have even more driving force, I threw this in the low end. What else is there in this pattern? Okay. What are you going into? 21, 21. So these these are the violin tremolos, or yeah, these are heroic horns, which is what the brass here is. And then we also have trumpets and French horn. And if we add those in, let's see, where do you guys go? You go into the leads, okay. I was recording a video and Mom was telling me when I need to practice oboe. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm just slowly adding everything back in. Now let's go over all the synthesized elements. This, which... yeah, these sound awful on their own, and I'm fully aware of that. We got... this is, what is Contact 4? Okay, never mind. There's always more to go over. Contact 4 goes into insert 21. Oh, that's the heroic horns. Okay, all of this is the, like, heroic horns and stuff like that. Let's go to Contact 6. This is the choir. This guy. Originally, there was also going to be this layer, but it sounded awful, so I got rid of it. There's the synth layer, the like chord patch here. And then there's this garbage FM lead that was originally supposed to sound a lot better, but it didn't, so I just kind of made it quieter. And this is saw wave FMing square wave FMing a saw wave with added tone under it. All of it, not all of it, but high pass. Let me hear how this sounds with this high pass as well. Better. It sounds better. What the heck? Anyway, compression, distortion, extra chorus, just to make it sound less dry. And then some extra processing. This has compression, EQ, nothing crazy. I think all of these have high passes, yeah. Oh, not this one. This doesn't have a high pass, okay. And then, you know, we layer that with this. And you can already see where I say that this project will destroy my CPU, because that is not the most CPU intensive part, but we're already getting to that point. Now, this is a copy of this section down here, but there's a few main differences. One, I took out the brass stab, and I'll explain why in a second. Two, I added these. Right, just to make it build up more. Everything else is pretty much the same, except some added build-up stuff like here. So I add in, the noise build and the riser. What? Okay, you already know how the noise build sounds. And then this Morse code says cereal is not soup. That's that. Anyway, the reason I didn't use the brass stabs here is so that when they come back in here, it doesn't just sound like more of the same, and it sounds like progression. Okay. Now... Oh, wait, no, there's one more thing I have to go over here. This is, right, the same 808, but with a much more, like, clicky intention to it. So this volume automation clip is accentuating the click and making everything else quieter. And this pitch is accentuating the click and making everything else quieter. Okay, now we can move on. The main difference between this section and the other melodic section is everything in the low end. Right, so I have the 808 playing that this time, but also because that didn't make it bouncy enough. Right, some of the things are now also playing that dun 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 thing. You can kind of hear it here and there. I think here it's also doing it. Yeah, so it's the same, but like now we also have the... Okay. Now, this section. This section is the coolest build-up ever. I'm going to first go over the drum pattern. Right. It's really simple. The only thing here is just a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 1 1 1. Or I guess 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. Da 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 da. You get what it is. The 808 does a... just slides down at the end, and then we have the impacts, which is where this automation comes in handy. It just changes the volume of the impacts. So here, right, it goes like... Okay, then I add the brass, but this time they're playing different notes. This is the 1, so C. This is the 3, 2, and then just tension. Right, so everything we already have together sounds like this. Let me try that again. This is the same thing from earlier. And this is a brass fade-in. We also have these guys, which I've already gone over. Now, this set of Morse code says cereal is soup, but without the soup. This is what happens when you get bored with your friends in voice chat. And all of this stuff. Now, this is the interesting part. So this section, this is a sound design jam from that I just cut up and processed. The way I did this sound design jam is the reason I made my How I Make My Reese's video, so I won't go over it in here, just check out that one instead. But the processing chain on this is really interesting. Where's the low pass? You're the low pass, okay. So right, it's some extra EQ to cut out the sub. Distortion, the balance is side chaining it to the impacts up here. And I'll show you that in a second. Then I EQ it a little bit. Then I low pass it and fade it in, like this. Okay, now these guys, this is a different sound design session that came from me throwing a sine wave through 8 OTTs, the octagon. No, wrong thing. Yeah, this one. And it's essentially just that for like 5 minutes, so. If I take off all the post-processing. Okay, now let's go through all this. Frequency shifter trick. Chorus. Patcher is doing a high-low mid split so that I can, right, this is a lot of the Reese video stuff. This is going the opposite direction a little bit quicker. Then I have another EQ. This one's really weird. This is trying to kind of mimic the other sounds so that they don't sound too weird. Then I have this chorus just to make it more wet and like the other ones. I have this destructor to make it more wet and over distorted like the other ones. And then this EQ to make it sound more like the other sound design session. Okay, now that with the impacts is... Okay, now for this section, the impacts get really quiet, but you can hear them here. This is just a ton of ambient stuff. Just to fill it more. And then we have this. Quietest brass stab ever. So what's going on with the chords here is I just have this melody that's kind of ascending, getting louder, and like, right, the da da na 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 na, right, it's kind of just like, ooh, stuff's happening. But the way this chord progression is working is I have one minor flat 6, which is just a really evil sounding chord, and then it goes up a minor third, just like copy paste up a minor third, up to E flat. So we changed keys this way. This is just kind of a cool chord progression. But then this is a trick I learned from Ice and Kiva on 2 from Zydus. And then here I just kind of heard it going to E. So it goes to E instead of F sharp. So it only goes up a half step this time. And then it changes keys finally to G. And then here I have to change keys twice to get back to C. So I'll go over that in a second. I'm not really sure what's going on there. I have these synths in the high end just to give it some like right, so all together. Right, and the piano's also doing the bass line. I'm fading out reverb and a muffling EQ on the piano. The impacts fade in. And now I add some stuff here. So it gets louder since I added a few instruments. I added this guy. I took out the impact, but I now have this guy slowly fading in over time. Just more stuff to fill the atmosphere. I added, let's see. I added, ooh, this is fun actually. Let's. Right, so this becomes more of a like march, like we're building to something. So I add more stuff. I add that ostinato in the lows. What else gets added here? Right, more brass. That might be it actually. I don't add too much because I'm saving it for like the last like bar or two. Yeah, okay, so I don't add too much, but then here, right, we build a bunch of stuff. This is the last Morse code. It says your mom is so hot because I was in voice chat with one of my friends and they're like, that'd be so funny. So I did it. You're welcome. And then we have, anyway, we got this last part. So this here, I have the brass fade in more. If I solo only the brass here. Right, so it's very much crescendoing, and it goes, one second, I'm figuring this out. 5, 1, 5, 1, right, because these are tritones, so that works. Or it gets 5, 1, and then we switch to 6, 5, 1 here. So it's all a setup to the A, is pretty much what it is. I have no clue how this works. I guess it's a secondary dominant if you want to be really specific, because you can say this is an F sharp dominant 7, then you can like do all sorts of garbage, but whatever. That's how that happens. That's how that works. Then I add in, what are you? What are you? You go into insert 42. That's this. Cool. So we have, what? A flat, B, G. Let me try to envision this in my head. A flat minor 7 into A, G flat, D major 7 into a 6, 1. So that's D diminished 7, dominant 5. That's the chord progression we're doing here. I don't know why or how that works. And right, I fill in the chords more as it goes on. I have it sound really mysterious when the piano hits this natural G. Just kind of sounds weird. And then as it goes on, the heroic horns fade in a ton and do a crescendo until they get to the dun 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 dun. Okay. Now, what else fades in here? Literally everything fades in here. So just... Okay. Here's it all together, including all of the risers and extra brass stuff, not including a tempo change. Where's the tempo change? Which one is it on? Where is the tempo change? There it is. Okay. Okay, so, right, we just have the dun, 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 dun. Okay. Then we go back to this first section again. This section. But this time without the Morse code and with this filling the space. And some extra risers, I think. Without the Morse code, though. And now we finally get to the last section. This. This is a 1 6 4 5 3 6 2 5 chord progression. It just works. I don't know. In general, me with melody writing is just kind of, hey, this sounds like it'll work. Yeah, this guy is a super sub-heavy version. And then I add this horn line, and it just kind of all comes together for this last part, and out of nowhere, this horn line makes the entire thing suddenly make sense and sound super cool, and I don't know why. There you go. At this last second, my CPU just gets destroyed. And that's because I have this tempo change and this massive chord stack. So let's get rid of that for now. This is what happens at the end. Right, and then I also just have these. You know, it's just a fade out. But like an interesting fade out. I also forgot to mention that here the snare fades in. Thank you, Galaxy Master, for this suggestion. Right? So that's the whole song. That's it. There might be some like master or something that I need to go over. Yeah, it's just some EQ on the master. Just some EQ. We got this guy. Yeah. that's about it. This project file is a lot more intimidating, is a lot less intimidating than it looks. So that's the full song. That's how it came together. If you want to see a little bit more of like my inspiration, how it like, you know, where I got the idea for the song, listen to the songs that I can't play because they're copyrighted. Um, they're also just great songs. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video useful, and have a good day.